in jeopardy as the former Prime Minister been betrayed. This is happening just a day after Odinga's elder brother, Dr. Uhuru Oginga, told KTN News that nothing stops Raila from working with Deputy President William Ruto. We'll dissect all that for you. We'll also take a look at Thursday's by-elections, the significance of the results, and the shameful scenes of chaos seen almost in all of the mini polls. Stand by for the next 120 minutes as we dissect the biggest political and policy issues in the Republic today. Let's get right into it. This Sunday, it appears that all is not well with the Uhuru Kenyatta-Raila Odinga handshake. This is after key Odinga allies claimed that a top cabinet secretary and a principal secretary were frustrating the ODM leader's 2022 presidential bid. The allies, including confident Siaya Senator James Orengo, have threatened to name the top officials. Orengo's position comes a day after Odinga's elder brother Uhuru Oginga hinted at a possible Raila-Ruto alliance. Is Raila plotting an exit strategy from the handshake? Is he being betrayed? Let's begin with KTN senior political reporter Duncan Haimba.
The firebrand Siaya Senator James Orengo was in his Ugenya backyard when he dropped what could possibly be a bombshell and a threat to the 2018 handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA chief Raila Odinga.
Harambee House and all government institutions which are subject to civilian authority should keep away from the question of determining the political leadership that will arise in the year 2022. That is not their responsibility. Some of them tried when Kibaki was retiring. They didn't succeed. During the first Kenyatta government, they tried, they didn't succeed. And even this one, they are not going to succeed. So we plead with them, do your job.
The two are said to be a cabinet secretary and a principal secretary, whom Orengo is threatening to expose soon.
Civil servants must be subject to political authority, to civilian authority. And we know what these characters are trying to do to determine who becomes president in the year 2022. Those characters are undermining the authority and the goodwill and the vision of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga.
Sentiments shared by Rarieda Member of Parliament Amolo Otiende.
And therefore, there are those who think that they can belittle the handshake and introduce other foreign elements and other foreigners and take us elsewhere. We want to remind them that where we were in 2018, as of February, Nyasachiel wanyalodo kanyo anytime katasani.
All this coming a day after Raila's elder brother, Dr. Uhuru Oginga, in an exclusive interview with KTN News, said Raila doesn't need President Uhuru Kenyatta's endorsement.
Raila will not rely on endorsement by Uhuru Kenyatta because if he won those 3 elections fighting against Uhuru Kenyatta, how can endorsement of Uhuru Kenyatta be as important?
However, he was quick to express his fears despite their confidence.
The endorser Uhuru Kenyatta has the machinery, and what we are hoping for is that he will not turn that machinery against Raila.
The pronouncements by the 3 Raila Odinga's insiders come after Odinga embarked on week-long political tour in the coast region, seen as a move to resuscitate ODM's winning clout in the region. Is Odinga scheming to ditch the handshake? Already, Wiper, KANU, ANC and Ford Kenya have formed what they call a sacred alliance, basically locking out Odinga, who now remains a lone ranger, as well as DP Ruto. Duncan Haimba, KTN News.
Thank you, Duncan. Duncan, they're raising some serious questions. Let me bring in my panel to try and make sense of what's happening here. I am joined in studio this morning by political analyst Javas Bigambo, joining us from our City Center studios. With us here, with me here, is Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana, lawyer and also political commentator. I'm also joined by the political editor at Standard Group, my colleague Roslyn Obala. I have also with me lawyer and political strategist Kipchumba Karori. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. Let me begin with you, Dr. so much is happening in a very short span of time. What do you read here with Orengo's and Otiende Amolo's utterances yesterday?
You know, thanks so much, Ben, for the invite. We were told on March 9th that the two leaders, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta and Honorable Raila Odinga, had found the silver bullet for the problems that have bedeviled this country. Other leaders protested that they had been excluded. And given the 9 thematic areas that BBI was proposing,
Right.
particularly if you pick inclusivity, some of us questioned how you can begin by excluding and claim to be including at the same time. Be that as it may, Honorable Raila Odinga and His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta proceeded with the BBI, and eventually they have been on a journey to persuade others to join.
It's almost 3 years now.
Yes. It is not lost on most of us that Honorable Raila Odinga has said times without number that the handshake and the BBI is not about positioning him for 2022. Fast forward. The clip that you've just shown by his brother ought to have been juxtaposed with the one that he said before, that if we have had numbers all along, but now we have the deep state on our side, who can defeat us? For him now to be saying that we hope that Uhuru does not use the system against us. For him and the others who have ridiculed other leaders who have been crying about inclusivity and saying this handshake is about two people. And Honorable Atwoli has been very, very clear. He has said that the handshake is about two people,
Right.
not any other. And so when the Honorable Raila Odinga and His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta walked the journey to Harambee House without including others, now it appears that things aren't moving according to script. And that explains why Raila's leading parliamentarians are now protesting.
All right.
I agree with your description that there appears to be trouble in the paradise. However, this trouble ought not to be shared nationally. The
right.
trouble ought to be shared just like the resources that have been sharing out of the handshake are being shared amongst those two handshake partners.
All right. Roslyn, it is in 2 days, it will be 3 years since that March 9th, 2018 handshake. And now we saw those utterances by Orengo and Otiende Amolo. There's something that he also said in the Luo. Maybe you can put it all into perspective for us.
Thank you, Ben. It's quite unfortunate that just 2 days to the 3rd year anniversary of the handshake, we are seeing that there is not peace at the BBI proponent side. And it's also quite unfortunate that the BBI bill has just passed the assemblies and introduced in Parliament, and now they have even invited the public to give their views. Now, when you hear Raila's allies talking about Harambee House mandarins, who have actually taken over, hijacked the process, and even ran out the BBI secretariat from town, which was supposed to handle this process, then you ask yourself what is on the cards. Because time without number, we have had President Uhuru insisting that the BBI in the handshake was not about 2022.
Yes.
And Raila, just 2 weeks ago when he met the leadership from Luo Nyanza, he was very categorical that he knows the president will not betray him, and he will also not betray the president. And a week ago, ODM's chairman said that the president and Raila had agreed that they defer any discussions, any alliances, any engagements on anything to do with 2022 elections and focus on passing the BBI bill. Once they are done, then they can negotiate because it can give them a clear picture of the positions that will be there, and if it doesn't pass, then which is the way forward. Now, when it comes to now Raila's allies crying foul, then it tells you that there is more than meets the eye. And you can look at it that any time there is a crisis, Raila goes back to his backyard. And today, this afternoon, we expect him to be in Kibra, in Kamukunji. And that is where he always goes back to retrace his steps. So we expect that today maybe we'll also open up and we get to know what exactly is happening. Is it about power? Is it about the resources? Is it about being shortchanged? Because now when they talk about the betrayal, we had it in 2013. We had it in 2017. We've always been treated to the conversation of deep state at Harambee House. Right. Now we've also had the Harambee House mandarins. Now the last one we had yesterday was about the Harambee House cabals. So we need to know who are these public officers who are running the show.
But actually, what do you think is happening here? We were told that the deep state this time was with Raila Odinga, but now it seems that all is not so rosy. What are we thinking?
Then you have to remember that we have said in this show, time without number, that first of all, when we are trying to solve national problems, we do not solve them through we do not personalize them and solve them. We solve national problems through institutions. That has been our undoing. And as we see the Tower of Babel that was BBI crumbling, this was expected because of a simple reason. What Uhuru Kenyatta went to the BBI or to the handshake with was a different reason with what Raila Odinga went with. Raila Odinga went there as a... Have you seen those houses where people go to so that winter can pass? He went to handshake so that the political winter could pass, and then he re-emerges. He has done that with Moi, he did it with Kibaki, so he was just reinventing himself, which is not bad. It is within his political creativity. But he ought to have known that in Uhuru Kenyatta, a typical Kenyan politician, betrayal runs deep in him. There are so many people who are littered within the shadows of Uhuru Kenyatta, whom he has betrayed. Mike Sonko is the recent case, and Raila Odinga becomes the latest casualty. So all those, Raila Odinga having been in the political circulation for 40 years, he ought to have known. The other thing that we need to ask ourselves is this: what amounts to betrayal? As we are saying handshake betrayal, does it mean that there were a deeper meaning of the handshake than we saw? Because, Ben, I have not seen anything Uhuru Kenyatta has done. And towards Raila Odinga, everything that was the first action are still continuous. And Raila Odinga, in his own admission, has said two things which we must not forget, even as he's being panel beaten properly now. One is this, that the handshake was between people who were sworn in. We were never sworn in as presidents, so it is him and Uhuru Kenyatta, the brother. Right. Number two, he has always said one thing, that we have never discussed about 2022. That means Uhuru Kenyatta, the State House mandarins, OP mandarins, and all the cabals in town have any other right to think outside 2022 as they discuss, to think outside the handshake as they discuss 2022. Right. For a simple reason, in Raila Odinga's own admission, he has said that this was not in the table. But there is something, Ben, as I conclude, I am seeing my senior very anxious. There is something that we must ask ourselves. What really went so bad in Matungu that really irritated ODM? There is something. So
you think it could be connected to the
It is connected to Matungu because when you look at the whole thing, maybe it was everybody went there to steal, and the other thief outstole the other one. So now the complaint...
These are serious allegations you're making here, but we'll also get into Matungu.
Ben, allow me to just say, my learned colleague has a very important point he's raising, but he's a bit too rough on His Excellency the President. Although we were not in Harambee House, one rallying call that is common to both His Excellency the President and Honorable Raila Odinga has been that the BBI is for national unity. That bit we must give it to the President. As the two have walked the journey, we have seen divergent paths being taken. Whereas the President has kept on wanting to bring other political players on the table, the wing that is represented by Honorable Raila Odinga has appeared to want to protect the President as if the rest are co-wives. The best example is about the Secretariat. the one that has been the BBI. If this is a national project, why would you only have representatives from Honorable Raila Odinga and His Excellency the President?
All right.
And this is the same question we raised.
Good questions.
Just a moment. This is very important so that it goes on record. Just before that, we had raised the question. If indeed the BBI is for national discourse,
yes,
why is it that people in the steering committee are only those appointed by Honorable Raila Odinga and Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta? And
right,
this is what we are now saying, that it cannot be that from one side of the mouth, you lay claim to nationalism and inclusivity, and from the other side of the mouth, what is profusely being emitted is our handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta.
Right.
The handshake is only between the two, our handshakes. So if it is your handshake, then leave the rest of the nation out of it.
All right. Let's get the views of Javas Bigambo. Javas, we want to bring into this conversation. What do you think is happening here? Is Raila Odinga plotting an exit strategy? Is he being betrayed? There are so many questions. Put it into perspective for us.
Thank you, Ben. I would start by saying that when two strange political bedfellows came together in an interesting political intermarriage, there are a few things that seemed not to be of interest to them and to the nation. One, that they did not try to establish the significance of incompatibility, if any, and to check whether the political genes of these individuals could actually strengthen the kind of political marriage they were getting into, and whether there are cases of political madness in the lineage of any that could actually render that kind of marriage improbable of subsistence for longer than anticipated. And so, looking at all the issues that are happening today, it is no strange to me and to many observers when cows and chicken are coming home to roost and cattle coming home to the cowshed to mow after their days in the grazing fields. Put it quite clearly and succinctly, I would say this, that acquiescing with the sentiments of my two learned seniors and agreeing too with Evelyn, I would indicate that there were certain realities that were held back from the general public after that and during that handshake that happened on the cold cement steps of Harambee House. That there were two phases. Phase one was the clandestine agreements and deliberations that happened within Harambee House, and then phase two had the issues that were captured in the 9-point agenda that were let known to the general public.
Right.
Looking at various interests that unfolded and are still unfolding, you realize that it seems probable and not far from the truth that for President Uhuru Kenyatta, matters of resources, matters of representation, etc., were closer to his heart with regard to the outcome of the BBI. And for Raila Odinga, he has not been very keen on matters, for example, resources, the same way it has been for Uhuru Kenyatta. And for him, it's been so much to do with political arithmetics that would work for him, ostensibly to make his ascension to the presidency probable. And that is why it is not strange that it seems the political plate tectonics underneath seem to be drifting in different directions. When you listen to the sentiments of my learned senior Otiende Amolo, when he said, and even went to the extent of swearing, Nyasea Chiel, he said, and I quote him, that actually Kenya can go back to where it was prior to the handshake. When you listen to the sentiments of senior counsel James Agri Orengo, saying that actually so much is at risk right now, and pointing his straight fingers ostensibly at Karanja Kibicho, possibly, and very other persons within the presidency, you realize that the ODM team, the Raila Odinga team, is not sitting pretty within the political marriage that this handshake is.
Thank you, Javas. And of course, we have to clarify, we do not know who those senior civil servants at Harambee House. We're not sure if it's indeed P.S. Karanja Kibicho, but we'll get to know that in the fullness of time. Roslyn, Atienda Molo going as far as saying we could go back to, things could be that bad, couldn't they?
I think
right?
things are very bad, because if you see somebody actually swearing and saying that we can even go back right now. And remember, the president has always been talking about the handshake bringing the peace that we are enjoying now. And I've just heard Bigambe talking about the issues of resources and representation. And the true fact from where we sit is that for the two partners, it was very important for the county assemblies to pass the bill, because that was where the litmus test was. Now, they have actually been able to pass this bill in the county assemblies. In parliament, is just ceremonial. And we are talking about deep state that will go to any length to have what they want. So it means that if it is going to the people, they can still have their way. And I think maybe this is what the camp from Raila's side have actually seen, and now the fears are real, that maybe somewhere they missteps what they had agreed, because Bigambe has talked about the deals that Kenyans were not able to know. We were told what they wanted us to hear. Right. But now from the issues they're raising now, maybe there is more that meets the eye than what we, the Kenyans, were able to know. And when it comes to politicians, when you talk about strength failures, politicians always, their interests merge when it is things that represent the two of them. But when it is something that does not represent their views, then they don't agree. And we have seen that in parliament so many times. We have seen that with the political class. We have seen this betrayal. It is not the first time that we're talking about betrayal in Kenyan politics. Right. So it is a normal occurrence in politics.
So we're trying to split hairs here between the BBI issues, and these are politicians who are making us do that. Let me begin with you, Bonakili. Between BBI and 2022, could things be so bad that we now see that the Uhuru Kenyatta people could be trying to discard the ODM people after having gotten the BBI through the crucial phases? And what would that mean for the BBI process?
I think, Ben, I owe something to Kenyans, which is honesty and the truth, because we are building a democracy, even in this conversation. One of it is this. With where Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto's relationship has reached currently, Uhuru Kenyatta cannot survive without Raila Odinga. Let's call a spade a spade. That is the first thing. The second thing, there is no BBI without Raila Odinga. He is the person who has the capital to go around and popularize BBI, because you have to know that up to now, the Tanga Brigade has remained non-committal on BBI. If you now introduce Raila Odinga also remaining non-committal, where will you take BBI from here? It will be some pockets of central Kenya and maybe some pockets of Nairobi. Because at the end of the day, counties like Kisii, Nyamira, and the counties in Luo Nyanza have brought forth very serious issues about representation. They are asking 1.8 people cannot have gained 4 constituencies. Well, the same in another place, 1.8 million have gained 10 constituencies. It is a valid question they are asking. Right. So what we need to say, Ben, is this. Whereas it is in the interest of all libertarians, myself included, that the BBI collapses and the handshake, because it has served to weaken our institutions. And there is something that we must speak to BBI, even as it fades away. And the handshake is one thing. The handshake came, that is when we started seeing Jubilee operating in a manner that doesn't respect court orders. Court orders became just any other documents. That is when we saw institutions, when they speak, we don't know what they mean. So when we go to 2022, and this is where the problem will come, the people who will have felt slighted in the handshake will come and coalesce together. You have to remember that our politicians at all time are transactional. I have never sat anywhere and believed that maybe Raila Odinga and William Ruto cannot work together. Why? Because it is always about their interests.
Let me get
the last thing that we must ask ourselves, where it leaves Kenyans. We ask ourselves now the honest question that Kenyans must ask. What was the main purpose of the BBI? Because when we listen to what Raila Odinga and his brigade is saying, they are not saying it was about Mwananchi. They are saying it was about Raila getting somewhere.
In 2022. Final question on this. Away from the legal issues, Daktari, politics is a big part of this.
Yes.
Is it possible for us to see Raila Odinga and William Ruto working together?
Oh, God. Honorable Raila Odinga can work with anybody. As long as his interests will converge.
Secured.
Wakili is right, 101%. Who knew in 1997 that Raila Odinga would leave the party of his father, Ford Kenya, merely because Omalo Kijana had beaten him to the game, and formed NDP, and after that folded NDP to join KANU, and was appointed a minister for roads and Secretary General, having dethroned J.J. Kamodo. The relationship between Honorable Raila Odinga and Moi was so bad. I mean, this is a man who has detained him. The detention has always flown in all politics that we've done, that Honorable Raila Odinga paid the greatest price by being detained. The man who detained Honorable Raila had no qualms to join him. Why? Because he knew that's the only way he was going to have his interests meet at that time. And Wakil is right, that they are transactional guys.
Right.
This BBI transaction was concluded on March 9th. First one, because Honorable Raila Odinga would not have gone to Harambee House in the first place if there was no transaction involved, in the sense that what was in it for him.
All right.
Then outside, and Obala is right here when she says that once that was done, the rest now is phase one or phase two. Honorable Raila Odinga, as we speak, there's no doubt that either way, he'll sway the way the politics will go.
Right.
There's no doubt. You must give it to him.
Still the man to beat.
However, it must also be understood, and this I quote him a while back when he said, that it's not that the citizens have been following me, that's Honorable Raila Odinga. I have been following the citizens. To mean that he has always identified with what the citizens require, and he has ridden on what the citizens require. He said that remark in 2002 on national media when Honorable Musalia Mudavadi had been appointed by the President Moi then to be vice president. So he was indicating that, look, the reason why I remain popular, and I agreed with him, is because people don't follow me, I follow people. And so today, the truth of the matter to some of us is that the handshake, having done without carrying everybody on board, could very easily become a steel bath. It could become a steel bath because even if you follow his trip in Mombasa, there's a lot of disquiet.
Yes.
For the first time, the Governor Amason Kingi told Honorable Raila to his face, when other sections of the country form political parties, it's okay. What is wrong with us are the cause forming our own political party.
Right.
And so because of that not carrying everybody on board to Harambee House, that will cost Honorable Raila Odinga. And you need to follow the number of ODM MPs from 2013 to 2017 and realize that Honorable Raila Odinga can actually suffer casualty. 2013 were more, 2017 are less. Reason being that there are positions he has taken which have not been popular with the people, and then he has to do a lot of hard work to redeem the space.
All right.
That is the fact.
Well, continue to keep an eye on this developing story. Raila Odinga is set to address the nation at Kibra this afternoon. We shall be, of course, keeping an eye on that for you and bringing you as soon as we get it. Let's take a quick commercial break here on Inside Politics. And we come back, we shall be having a post-mortem of the recently concluded by-elections in Kabuchai, Matungu and other civic wards and what it means for this country's politics. Don't go too far.